Hey, this is Erica from Ever Educating, and this channel is teaching tips, tools, ideas, and resources for new college instructors. And today's video is an answer to a submission. And I had someone ask about teaching an asynchronous online course. What's the best approach for opening the modules? Should they open all at once, a week at a time, a milestone at a time? Like, what's the best way of doing this? And then part two, they kind of talked about how they approach it. They have a few mini lectures in each week. Do I recommend, more outside of that? Do I recommend having not just the slides, but videos, kind of audio recordings, whatever the case may be? So to start with opening the modules, this is really tricky. And I would say there's different approaches, right? So there's having the whole course open at once. Let's say all 16 weeks are available on day one of the course. There's opening it week by week, right? So the complete opposite. So you could only see the week ahead starting on Sunday or on Monday of that week. And then there is the unit approach. So let's say you have your major projects due week 4, 9, and 15. Then you have the first 4 weeks open, then the next, and then the next, based off of those milestones, right? So they can work a few weeks ahead, but they can't see the whole course, okay? And so those are the three main strategies. Of course, there is more variety too. So for example, maybe you decide, okay, you're gonna be able to see 2 weeks at once, right? So it just opens 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. So you can work slightly ahead, but not the full unit or the full course, right? So there is variety, but I would say the main three are the whole course is open, it's week by week, or it's unit by unit is the most likely situation here. So how do you decide what's best for you? A couple things to consider here. How is your course designed? So if your students had access to the whole course, if a student works ahead, are they going to be very, very confused when they hit week 4 when it's still week 1, right? Because if it's designed in a way where it gets really advanced as you go along and you think your students will be very confused, then having the whole thing open probably would not work in your favor, because you might have students emailing like, hey, I'm working on week 5 and I don't know what's going on. Could you help me out? And you're like, it's week 2. You shouldn't be there for another 3 weeks, right? So how the course is designed could influence how it opens, right? Because it might be like, hey, it is best to just have 1 week at a time, so there's not tons of questions being emailed to you, because it's going to be much clearer once they get that welcome email for the week where you give them more context, or when you reveal a video lecture each week, because that's how you're going to be doing it. You have some sources that are linked in each week, but your approach to teaching an async course is every Monday you send them a recorded video of your lecture. Well, in that case, having all these weeks open when those lectures don't exist yet is not a great idea, because again, they could cause a lot of confusion, or they might think, oh yeah, I'm done with weeks 1 through 5. And no, you haven't watched the lectures for week 2, 3, 4, 5 yet, because they haven't been posted, right? Where on the other hand, if everything's already there, all your video lectures, all your resources, really detailed descriptions of what they need to do for each week, well then maybe there's no harm in having the whole course open at once, because they can follow along really easily with the content in the course, okay? So that's the first thing to consider. Your course design, how can that influence what's best for students and how you open the modules. And then second though, is the demographics of your students. So if you're teaching in a non-traditional setting where you have late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50-year-olds or more who are coming back for a second career, so you need a new degree, something like that, well, those students probably have a lot of responsibilities. So maybe they have spouses or partners, they have children, they have full-time jobs, they have, they're caretakers to their elderly parents, etc., right? So there's a lot going on. Maybe they're taking your program part-time, or it's full-time, but it's full-time where they also have a full-time job too, right? And again, other responsibilities. Versus in a traditional setting, you're teaching 18-year-olds, well, that's completely different, right? Because most likely they're not married, they don't have kids, right? They might be working, but that's very different from your non-traditional situation. So that could influence how you design your course and how you reveal the modules, right? Because in a traditional setting, you might decide, yeah, I'm going to do week by week, because they're also taking some in-person courses, and that's week by week, right? So this is going to be very similar. In that case, more power to you, open it week by week. The non-traditional, you might decide, you know what, I know that they have a lot of priorities, maybe above my course, but I want them to succeed. So I'm going to open the whole unit. So if they have parent-teacher conferences, a major project at work, their spouse is, traveling for the week, so they need more time with their kids and to get things done, they can work ahead if they need to, at least for those few weeks of this unit, right? Or you might decide the whole course is open at once. You know what? You have a lot going on. I understand. Do it at the pace that you need to do it at. Email me with any questions you have, right? So I'd say those are the two things. How is your course designed can influence how you open it. And then who are your students, right? Given their situation, what will be best for them? And of course, what will be best for you, right? Because you want to make sure you have a balance. It's not just for them, it's for you as well. So those are two things to consider when you open up your modules in your async course, okay? So you might decide, hey, let's meet in the middle. I don't want to do week by week, but I don't want to do the full at once. I'm going to go ahead and do unit by unit, right? Maybe you just want to do that easy balanced aspect, but it could be better to really think it through and decide what works best is this situation. 2 weeks at once, right? 3 weeks at once, 1 week at once, the whole course, etc. So hopefully that's helpful in the deciding how to open your courses, right? And then you asked about, well, what's in each module, right? So you, in this case, the person who asked this question, has 3 to 5 mini lectures in each week, slides basically. What can you do with that? Should you be doing more? Should you be adding audio? So this is really dependent on your preference in your teaching style, as well as what you think would work best for the course content that you are teaching, right? Because if your course is very much I'm just imparting knowledge to students, it's not so much practical application, but here are concepts you need to know going forward into your degree, then I would think that having some kind of lecture would be helpful rather than just slides, right? Because slides can be very static. Hey, here's these definitions, right? But it might be better if you have okay, here's a definition and you have a voiceover. Here are examples of this definition applied in real world situations. Here are scenarios where these concepts come into play. So in that sense, right, it can be very helpful to have audio or visual or video lectures, because the whole point of your course is imparting this knowledge, these concepts to your students. And static slides can just be a bit too opaque, right? There might be confusion left because they're just reading it and okay, I memorized definition, I'm moving on. Probably not the best approach here, right? So in that sense, I do think your idea of having some kind of audio portion would be helpful. Now, I also think there's courses that are very much practical application. So maybe it's not a course where it's just getting to know these concepts, but can you apply them in given scenarios? So in that sense, I do think potentially having an exemplar, right? An example each week would be helpful in addition to your mini lectures, right? Because you might have mini lectures again about these concepts and how do you apply these concepts, etc. But then give okay, here's an example. Here's a scenario, and here is how I'm applying this concept to this scenario. So having that exemplar video or document or visual, whatever it is that you want to create, would be a good mentor text for your students before they start applying it on their own, right? So in that sense, you might have, hey, here are these mini lectures. Here's an exemplar of the practical application of what we learned. And now here's a small activity where you apply it yourself, right? And so it kind of scaffolds really well for your students. Here's some knowledge. Here's an example. Now do it yourself, right? Next week, the same thing. Your mini lectures that you already created. Here's an example. Here's a small activity, right? And that builds into the larger unit activity that you have them do, right? So I do think there should be more than just the slideshows, right? Because those can be not very engaging to students. And students hearing your voices or seeing you on the screen could help them feel your presence more and feel more engaged with the material because they're seeing or they're hearing you and they know, okay, they're taking the time to get me to really learn this material. It's not just this quick slideshow they put together. It's, you know, the actual lecture that they created, the resource they created to show me how to apply this. Now it's my turn to do the work afterward, right? So I do think figuring out how to get your presence in there in async course is very important. And so there's different approaches to doing this. I have a video about how to use class announcements in async course that I'll link below. But hopefully that's helpful of one approach to designing each week. Again, the mini lectures, the example, the practical application. Okay, so hopefully this is helpful. Thank you for submitting your question. If you're watching this and you have your own question, I'll link that form below, and I'll see you next time with a new video.